Okay. Ready?
Okay. My name's Amrita. I live in Kansas City, and I am so excited to find a campaign that actually aligns with my values. And this is my Bernie story. I grew up in western Nebraska and on a farm, and things were a little bit different in those days. The farmers saved, in the early years, they saved their corn, they saved their wheat, and they planted those seeds again. And so that saved them money from buying, from commercial vendors. Also, the harvests were a little bit littler then, but they didn't have to buy, they didn't buy as much chemical fertilizer, they didn't buy herbicides, and so it was probably easier to make a living farming in those days. The little town where was closest to my hometown changed over the years. In the beginning, there were 2 grocery stores. There was a newspaper. There were hardware stores. Now the only thing left is gas stations, restaurants, and you can buy a little bit of bread and milk at the gas station. So I'm really hoping for the government to really work on rural economies, and I'm really glad that the Sanders platform, when he talks about climate change, includes family farmers and renewable regenerative agriculture, in addition to some other things like affordable housing and research into making energy more efficient and energy storage better. I'm also pleased that that platform includes job retraining and job and support for people that work in fossil fuel industries, like some of my relatives who work for railroads that transport coal. When like most of the people in my class, I left the small town and I went to college. And college was a little bit different back then, in that I was able to get scholarships, and I worked for the university, and I got out with $6,000 worth of debt, considerably less than people end up with now, although it was in those days the equivalent of 1 year's teaching salary. I really want the young people today to have that same kind of opportunity, to not have unbearable student debts, and to be able to create a career for themselves. Some of the other things that draw me to the Sanders campaign are his work with people of different ethnic and backgrounds, and making this country work justly for everyone. When I graduated from the college, I taught for a short time in the Sandhills near an Indian reservation, and I was really startled to find that all the same stereotypes that I'd heard about African American people when I went to the university town were now applied to Native American people. And they were just too similar. I just had to believe that this was simply racism. So I'm really pleased that the Sanders campaign is wanting to work with Native American people to honor the obligations that we have made with them, support health care in that area, give them authority to take care of crimes that happen on the reservation when people leave and go outside the reservation. I want a fair country for everyone. I also worked for a short time in an African American community in the high-rise, and I saw there the double-edged sword of poverty and racism. The thing that struck me most in my memory is of a 4th grade kid coming up to me and telling me, "It's not safe to come to my school." And I looked at this kid. He was, very innocent young kid, and I wondered who had told him this early on that he was dangerous. So I'm grateful for a campaign that works on public schools, that work for people, and that tries to close down the school-to-prison pipeline. The last years of my career, I worked as a clinical medical librarian, rounding with teams in the City County Hospital. And there I saw firsthand the problems that lack of preventive care led to. I saw people that didn't get their insulin coming in to have legs removed, below the knee or above the knee removed. And insulin's more expensive now. I saw people that came in with originally had a small cut, and they couldn't afford the antibiotics that the doctor prescribed, so they came in with a bloodstream infection. These things cost a whole lot more in the long run, and sometimes they cost lives. And so I want a country that makes medicines affordable and that opens health care to all. For these reasons, I'm so delighted to find a campaign that supports social justice for all people, caring for rural communities, and taking care of our health care. Thank you. I would ask you, if you might, take a look at the Bernie Sanders. If you also want a country that works for everybody, to go to berniesanders.com, sign up to volunteer, donate if you can, and above all, speak out for a country that works for everybody.